Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Now, this topic here is something that we have to discuss: social media and the mental development of our young next generation. There's this clip that's bouncing around with Joe Biden's Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, where he gives his professional medical opinion on the issue of young people in social media, and there's this element of hypocrisy that for me is just so glaring, coming from a Biden official that I just had to make a video. We gotta talk about this, the core issue itself, but most importantly, what the left is missing or purposely ignoring. We've got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so let's first start off with the context. Here's the clip that I was referring to.
What is the right age for a child to start using social media? I worry that right now, if you look at the guidelines from the platforms, that age 13 is when kids are technically allowed to use social media. But there are two concerns I have about that. One is, I personally, based on the data I've seen, believe that 13 is too early. And I think that it's a time, early adolescence, where kids are developing their identity, their sense of self. It's a time where it's really important for us to be thoughtful about what's going into how they think about their own self-worth and their relationships. And the skewed and often distorted environment of social media often does a disservice to many of those children. But the other concern I have is that these rules around age are inconsistently implemented.
What is the right age for a child to start using social media? The US Surgeon General believes that 13 is too young. It's too young for a child to use social media. Well, I find that real friggin' interesting. I'm sure most of you people know exactly where I'm going with this, because you have one medical end of the Biden administration saying that children are too young at the age of 13 and possibly even a little bit older to even use social media, but then you have the other end, Rachel Levine, not exactly sure how you pronounce her name, and Jen Psaki previously, even Joe Biden and other individuals, claiming that people even younger than the age of 13 are old enough to make their own decisions when it comes to their gender identity.
There is substantial misinformation about gender-affirming care for transgender and gender-diverse individuals. We are in this nation facing an onslaught of anti-LGBTQI+ actions at the state levels across the United States, and they are dangerous to the public health. The positive value of gender-affirming care for youth and adults is not in scientific or medical dispute. So we all need to work together to get our voices out in the front line. We need to get our voices in the public eye.
To be clear, every major medical association agrees that gender-affirming healthcare for transgender kids is a best practice and potentially life-saving. All of this begs an important question. What are these policies actually trying to solve for? LGBTQI+ people can't be erased or forced back into any closets, and kids across our nation should be allowed to be who they are.
Now, going back to the clip of Biden's Surgeon General, he said this specifically. These are very specific words.
Kids are developing their identity, their sense of self. It's a time where it's really important for us to be thoughtful about what's going into how they think about their own self-worth and their relationship.
Identity and sense of self. Do they not notice the glaring hypocrisy? That's pretty much what we've been saying, that children during their developmental years are susceptible to cultural influence, and that maybe, just maybe, we shouldn't be subjecting children to inappropriate adult content and alternative lifestyles during their early developmental years. Maybe we should be leaving them alone, letting them develop without all of the inappropriate influence, because they're susceptible to trends. I always point to this staggering data right over here. Each line on this graph represents a different generation. From the traditionalist generation to Generation X, there's a pretty consistent trend line. And then all of a sudden with millennials, and especially over the last 6 or 7 years, we're seeing a huge spike in the share of Americans who identify as LGBTQ. And then when you take a look at Generation Z, the numbers are just staggering, from 16 to 21% in a 1-year period when it comes to identifying as part of the rainbow crowd. This is the social media generation, and really starting in 2015, 2016 is when this stuff started to get really popularized, when it became a fad, a trend that people were talking about. The whole non-binary thing, pronouns, the whole spectrum ideology really started to be popularized then. Correlation isn't necessarily causation, but for me, this is a massive, massive red flag. And like I always say, it's a social experiment. That is exactly exactly what we're doing. We don't know what the long-term societal consequences are going to be. We don't know that we're doing the right thing. Leftoids have convinced themselves that they're just being compassionate by enabling all of it, but really, we don't know. In a certain way, we're effing around and we might find out. Collectively, as a society, when I see these numbers, my personal belief is that children are being taken advantage of. Susceptible, malleable minds in their developmental years are being inundated with propaganda on TikTok, through Hollywood media, TV shows, and movies, the constant exposure of adult-style entertainment, whether it be through the adult industry or even in music videos and stuff. For instance, the infamous Lil Nas X music video and the most recent Sam Smith music video. And at the root of all of it is money and greed. J.K. Rowling tweeted this the other day. Many health professionals are concerned that young people struggling with their mental health are being shunted towards hormones and surgery when this may not be in their best interest. Many, myself included, believe we are watching a new kind of conversion therapy for young people identifying a certain way who are being set on a lifelong path of medicalization that may result in the loss of their fertility and full sexual function. We're also seeing the Italian Psychological Association expressing great concern over puberty blocking drugs. The Italian Psychoanalytic Society SPI penned a letter this month to the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni expressing their great concern over the ongoing experimentation of drugs meant to stop puberty in children and urging rigorous scientific discussion. It's only industry that stands to benefit from this. For instance, the healthcare industry. And of course, the leftoids are going to screech, capitalism. Money's at the core of all of it. It's corporate greed. What do you expect? Of course, that's a terrible argument considering the problem still exists in the socialized healthcare system. There's the exact same monetary incentive. The only difference is the money comes from the government rather than the free market. But anyways, I just wanted to quickly address that because of course somebody in the comment section is going to mention that the healthcare industry, psychologists and surgeons, and of course drug companies clearly have incentive here. Through this whole tackling identity crises through medical means, they stand to make a whole lot of money. It's a huge, probably billion-dollar industry at this point. And of course the beauty industry stands to benefit as well. No longer are beauty companies just targeting women. Woke makeup brand shares photo of what appears to be a bearded man wearing bright pink lip cream. We also saw the whole situation with Dylan Mulvaney getting sponsored by a massive makeup company. And so it shows you that behind all of this is industry. They're pushing a trend, making it trendy and fashionable to question your identity or just to make up your identity as you go along. It's being promoted endlessly to your children through entertainment and social media. And of course, you're not allowed to question it because if you do, you're a hateful bigot. We really need to start having a real conversation about this topic without tiptoeing around, because the mental health and the psychological development of our next generation of our children is on the line here. I mean, you heard it straight from Joe Biden's Surgeon General.
Kids are developing their identity, their sense of self.
He said it, I didn't have to say it. All of a sudden, Ron DeSantis' actions seem to be a whole lot more justified, seem to make a lot more sense now, don't they? Yeah, that's exactly what we've been saying. Children at a young age are malleable, they're impressionable. You can imprint pretty much whatever you want on them, and that's why children should be protected. Protected from the Hollywood media predators, protected from corporate wokeness, the medical industry, the beauty industry, and most of all, the one place they should definitely be protected, in the schooling system, which is supposed to be a sanctuary for children, to learn, progress, develop, not to be indoctrinated, not to be targeted by teachers, promoting, pushing, and influencing them with totally inappropriate adult topics. I mean, some of the things that have been uncovered in the public school system from Project Veritas and people like Christopher F. Rufo, I just don't see how somebody operating in good faith could defend any of that stuff, especially understanding this very key concept.
Kids are developing their identity, their sense of self.
That's what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, friends, and I'll see you on the next one.